you cannot attain happiness. So no, you cannot attain happiness any more than you can attain the weather. Because happiness is like the weather. It comes, it goes, it changes. Here's what you can do. You can stop shooing happiness away when you find it outside by the gate in the backyard like a dog sniffing around thinking it might want to come in sometime. In this presentation, I'm going to try to do two things. I am going to call attention to a pattern that many of us have that keeps us from being in the present moment and keeps us from moving things forward and keeps us being happy. And I'm going to borrow something, steal something actually, from a trick that trapeze artists use and suggest that by using one thing, by changing one simple thing, that you can change the amount of happiness that is available to you. How many people in this room have done what you would consider a high-stakes presentation of some kind? Not a rhetorical question. Yeah, thank you. Almost everybody, right? I'm doing one right now. And when I walk out onto the stage, especially backstage, right, when I'm listening to Eve Ensler telling her stories, right, a lot of stuff, a lot of voices come into my head. I have access, let's say that. I have access to certain voices, and they say, Matt, what are you doing? Or, you know, Matt, look around the room. You could be the least intelligent person in this room. Matt, you know, you think you're funny, but you're not really funny. You're just goofy. Anybody know what I'm talking about with the voices? Okay, for mine, they get actually a lot more graphic than that. But they boil down to one thing. Don't make a mistake, 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 don't make a mistake. And if we give them too much credit, because they're about self-doubt, they're about fear of failure, and if we listen naively, we will do their bidding, and we will stop. It will stop us from doing what we want to do. It will stop us in our tracks. It's good that we have these voices. If we didn't have those voices, we wouldn't be here. We would have been hit by a train, or we would have been shot by a jealous lover, or we would have overdosed, or something like that. We know there are things not to do, and the voices help us with that. However, how do you respond to this mistake moment? How do you respond when it comes up? Here's what I do. I'll show you not what I do now, but here's what I believe I've been trained to do. And you can do it with me if you like. It's a lot of fun. I'd like you to think of the last mistake that you made, or a situation that leaves you feeling overwhelmed. Have you got one? If not, use that. Criticize yourself for not being able to come up with one right away. That'll do. Let's keep this easy, okay? I've got one that I thought of in advance, so I wouldn't have to feel like you're feeling right now. My wife and I moved into my old house with my 91-year-old mother. In our kitchen, there is a dry erase board. We've all agreed that it would be better for everybody if, when we left, we would write our name and what time we plan to return home. Easier for everybody. I've agreed twice, 2, 3, 4 times to do this, and look what happens to my body. Look what happens to my body as I even start to say it. I keep forgetting to do it. Okay, so that's what I want you to join me in right now. I want you to do that, your mistake or your incapacity to think of one, and I wanted to put it in charge of your body from the sitting position. You don't have to stand up or anything, and make your body a Gumby that does the bidding for the mistake, okay? Let's do that now. I keep forgetting to do it, right? And I come to this place, right? And it's like this. I call this the cringe mode. And from the cringe mode, I suppose I'm safe, but I am not likely to invite happiness into my life. So what is this? What is this place? It's shame, is what it is. It's embodying the mistake. It's becoming the mistake. It's going from I made a mistake to I am a mistake. And it will shut us down. I went to an all-boys Catholic school at a time, different time, at a time when we were educated to the sound of our friends being whipped with a leather strap in the hall. It was the musical score to our high school education by which we learned. And I remember being in class, and there was a teacher who was nuts. And he was in his mood, right? And being in his mood, I sensed it. Being a classic teen child of an alcoholic, I recognized this mood. And maybe it's because he was holding a book, okay? And he used a book to hit people on top of the head. So I sensed that he was in his mood, and I knew that somebody was going to be hit within about 90 seconds. So what do? Do you know? Well, I know how it's not going to be me. I grab the math that I'm pretending to study, and I grimace, and I show pain in relationship to the learning. So I'm looking at me, she's the same, and I'm physically expressing my shame for his benefit. Okay, and he walks by, sees what I'm doing, and he thinks to himself, you know that Smith, he's okay. My friend Tom was in the front row. Tom was thinking something like, life is good. Boom! And Tom gets hit on the head with a book, and it hurt. So what did I do? I gave myself an insurance policy. I took an insurance policy out on myself, and I administered to myself 0.002 decimals of pain. And I did beat myself up, but not much. 0.002 decimals of pain, and I avoided 9.7 that Tom got, and maybe a couple other people got in the front row because I had this insurance policy. Is that a good insurance policy? You think? Somebody's saying no. You weren't there. It's a good one. It felt like a good one at the time for what I avoided, right? And I would do it again, and I did it again, and I did it again and again and again, and that's the problem. I did it hundreds and hundreds of times. Can you relate to this? You become an adult. You've jumped through all the hoops that kept you alive and took you to adulthood, and you're successful, pretty successful, right? And you find yourself now, as a successful adult, being asked to be creative, being asked to take more risks, being asked to think out of a box, being asked to, and asking yourself to be more spontaneous, to do art or to take an acting class. And you find that you are overinsured. Anybody? That's certainly what happened to me. Even a good insurance salesman will tell you, you don't need $1 million policy on a tent. We are overinsured, and it stops us in our tracks. So I know what you're asking now. Matt, you promised us you were going to tell us one thing that was going to help us. This is it. One simple thing. It's called the failure bow, because it's about coming to terms with making mistakes. The failure bow. Who does it? Improvisers do it. Who does it? Trapeze artists do it. I don't know if you've ever met a trapeze artist. These guys are on the edge. I've met a couple, okay? And they are true artists in that they are always trying to get better. And if they can do, and it's pretty risky, right? If they can do 2 flips, they're trying to work on the 3rd one. And when in the circus you see them they go for the 3rd flip and they miss and they fall into the net, what do? Do you know? They do this right away, right? They do that. They don't do like the NFL players do, which is, hey, show for the camera that I don't want anybody to think that I don't care about this, that kind of thing. No, they do the failure bow, and they do it immediately. And then what do? They get back on the horse. Immediately, they do the failure bow, and they keep going. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? I'm going to do it right now. Okay, so I think about the last mistake I made, right? And I forgot to write down, and I start to go into the cringe mode, right? But I remember that I made a deal with my friend who I used to work with, Edward Sampson, 25 years or something ago. We used to work doing theater, and we agreed when we start going into the cringe mode, and he taught me how to do the failure bow, when we start going into the cringe mode, we reverse it. We go here instead. I throw my arms up in the air, not here, this is don't shoot, right? This is it. It's more vulnerable to extend it, and we add to that a dumbass grin. And the dumbass grin is borrowed from somebody on NPR who was talking about training dogs. And for a dog, the grin is a form of submission. It's surrender. Anybody who has a dog, you've seen the dog go, ruff, 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 it's okay. I mean, and there is an element, a very important element of this is surrender, to let it go, to offer it up. Look at this room. There's a high capacity for intellectual intelligence in this room. Nobody in this room thinks that their mistake-making days are over. We all know that there's a lot of mistakes in store, so let's have a plan to do something about it when it happens. Let's get that ready. So stand up, if you will. If you refuse to stand up, thank you for your boundaries. But those of you are standing up, I want you to think of that last thing, that last mistake that you think you may have made, and I'd like you to start there, and then on the count of 3, I want you to throw your arms up in the air with a don't forget the dumbass grin, and I want you to yell something. I want you to yell, thank you, I failed, as loud as you can. Thank you, I failed. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you, I failed. Very nice. You can sit down unless you feel the need to keep standing and continue. to do the failure bout. I want you to do this. I want you to do this at work when you realize you just erased an hour's worth of work. I want you to do it at home when you open up the refrigerator and you realize you forgot to buy milk yesterday. And there's a bowl of dry cereal there next to you. They forgot. I've done it in my car. I'm driving in the car, and I realized something I did 30 years ago to an old girlfriend, and I roll out the window, and I actually do it, right? You can't necessarily walk into work late for a meeting and say, thank you, I failed, because maybe they're not versed in this. But here's what you can do. You're at a meeting. You feel the need to do it. You put your hands underneath the table, and you go like this. You're sending a message to the brain that action is being taken. You can't be happy and sad at the same time. You always have a choice. You always have a choice. It's up to your personal culture, which culture you cultivate for your friends and for yourself. You can go to the cringe mode, where you're safe, or you can go to here, which is risky, but it's a place from which you can move forward. And if you do that, and if you clap for other people when you see them doing the cringe mode, because you're not rewarding the failure. You're rewarding the transparency. You're rewarding the availability. You're rewarding the accountability. You're rewarding their willingness to be in the present moment with you. And if you do it and applaud it over and over, it may be like opening that gate in the backyard and letting that dog that's been sniffing around, that dog we call happiness, maybe that dog will wander in. And if it does, sure, you might have to clean up after it, but it'll be worth it. Thank you very much.